Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12CR 1522. The records should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys, Ms. Brady, Mr. King, Ms. Higgs, and Ms. Spengler, and the people are represented by Mr. Brockler, Mr. Orman, Ms. Pearson, Mr. Essen, and Ms. Tish McGuire. And we are, oh, Ms. Nelson's here too, sorry, I missed you.
I was under the table.
Oh, okay. Ms. Nelson was under the table, but she is here. And Mr. Orman is standing up.
May I speak to the court briefly, Your Honor?
You may.
At some point in the future, maybe tomorrow, depending on how long cross-examination goes, if not tomorrow, next week, we are going to seek to admit some emails from the defendant's University of Colorado email accounts. I've discussed this with counsel. I expect there will be an objection to some, if not all, of the emails. We may have a specific objection to particular emails. And I think the procedure we've utilized in the past is to give the court a copy of the anticipated exhibit so that in the event there is an objection, the court can be familiar with it. So I would like to present that to the court, not as an exhibit, but simply so that when we reach that point, either tomorrow or next week, the court will have it and know it.
All right, is that okay with the defense?
It is.
Okay, you may approach. Do you want me to review all of them, or do you know the specific ones that there's an objection to?
I think.
All right. All right, well, let me know which ones, when you figure out which ones you're going to object to, let me know so that I can focus on those, okay? Okay, thank you. All right, anything else, Mr. Orman or Mr. Brockler?
Yes, Your Honor. What I'd like to do this morning, we're going to have Dr. Reed come up and just lay the quick foundation for the admission of that last video. There are also the 13 redacted clips that were part of the court's order for 264A, I believe. We had those broken out into 13 separate DVDs. I don't think they're admissible now, but some of them may be at sentencing if we are to get there. And what I'd like to do is to lay the foundation for those. I spoke with Mr. King, and I think we're in agreement that this portion of the redactions discussion ought to take place outside the presence of the jury. I also spoke or heard from Ms. Brady, who said she would let the court know that she would oppose me trying to lay the foundation outside the presence of the jury, which would thus necessitate us at some future date potentially bringing Dr. Reed back up from Texas to merely lay the foundation for those 13 redactions.
Judge, just so that we're clear, I'm deferring to Ms. Brady on this issue.
Okay, Ms. Brady.
Judge, I just don't see how they can lay a foundation outside the presence of the jury. The jury has the right to hear the foundation for the piece of evidence they may be hearing. So we object to those clips being played at sentencing to begin with. We object to the foundation being laid outside the presence of the jury. And if they're going to play the clips, we have a right to cross-examine Dr. Reed on those clips. So we object.
Well, Ms. Brady brings up a good point, cross-examination. They do have a right to cross-examine him on those clips. So if you're going to play those clips, I think they have the right to ask questions about them. I was inclined to grant your request, Mr. Brockler, but Ms. Brady's right. They have a right to question him about it. So I think the best way to do it, and frankly the only way to do it, is to have him here for sentencing if you want to play those clips.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Orman?
I'm just going to go talk to Dr. Reed for a second.
Oh, okay, thank you. I thought you were going to disagree with Mr. Brockler. Okay, all right. All right, is there anything else we need to talk about at this time?
The people, Your Honor.
All right. And so, Mr. Brockler, you're anticipating that you would have Dr. Reed take the witness stand shortly this morning, only to lay the foundation for the next disc and then play that next disc, which is about 3 hours and 15 minutes long, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and then we'll take our lunch break, and then you can do your final questioning of Dr. Reed, and then we can proceed with Mr. King's cross-examination at that point.
Yes, Your Honor. For scheduling purposes, a couple things. One, I've conferred with Mr. King, and he's indicated, and I think this makes sense, that he's likely to go over the rest of the day with his cross into tomorrow. But in terms of logistically planning for Friday, we don't think that the rest of, at this point, we don't think that the rest of Dr. Reed would take through more than the morning of tomorrow. And so we'll plan accordingly. I think the other part of this is the court's going to want to build in breaks this morning, and if the court would let me know when it wants to, I'll try to figure out when to cut out with Ms. Huntsman.
Let's plan to take a break at about 10 after 10 if we can, okay? And then we'll take a break between 10 after 10 and 10:30, and then we'll see where we are at that point. Anything from the defense, Mr. King or Ms. Nelson?
Your Honor, I would just like to ask for leave of court to file just a written proffer of the clarifications that I wanted to make to the record yesterday that I was prevented from doing so in open court.
That request is denied. You asked me to supplement the record, and I allowed you to supplement the record. After you supplemented the record, I then ruled. Once I ruled, then you said you wanted to clarify what you had said before. I don't need clarification. I understood what you were saying. The way it works is the lawyers make arguments, and then the court makes a ruling. And once the court makes a ruling, it's done. It's over. I gave you the chance to argue. You argued. I ruled. We have to move on.
I understand, Your Honor. This is more for the appellate courts, frankly, and for purposes of the appellate record. So if the court's denying me the opportunity to do that, I understand and respect the court's ruling. I would just ask that we submit this as a tendered and rejected pleading. We can give it a court's exhibit number, or I actually have it already marked as D-289. Like to be in the record even if it's been rejected by the court.
Let me make sure I understand correctly. You're asking permission to clarify what you said yesterday. Is that right?
I'm asking for permission to file a written proffer of what I would have said had I been permitted to clarify.
Right. But when you're requesting to clarify, you're asking to clarify what you said yesterday. Is that right?
No, I'm asking to clarify, when the court made its ruling, there were some statements that the court made that in my assessment of the record are not an accurate representation of the record in the litigation that we've engaged in. And I wanted to make that clear. This is a very, very important issue. It's probably the most important legal issue in this case. And if an appellate court is reviewing the record someday, I want to make sure, as counsel for Mr. Holmes in this capital case, that I've done everything that I can to make sure that I have made clear what the record is. I'm not asking the court to revisit its ruling. I'm not asking to further engage with the court on this issue. I just am asking for permission to file a written proffer of the clarifications that I asked to make yesterday and was denied the opportunity to do so.
I'm not understanding you. I mean, either you're asking to clarify what you said, in which case I don't need clarification, or you're asking to clarify something else.
I'm asking to clarify some things that the court stated about the litigation that we have engaged in pre-trial with respect to some of the other experts in the case, for one.
Yeah, thank you. But I don't need clarification about what the court said.
I understand. I just would request that we mark it as a court's exhibit as a tendered and rejected pleading then, Your Honor.
That request is denied. All right, let's move on. Anything else on behalf of the defense at this time? Nope? I'll take that as a no. Okay, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. Ms. Kerlings, can you help her with that foot stand, please? Good morning, members of the jury. I see we're having issues with the foot stands this morning. I hope you had a good evening. Thank you for coming back today and for being on time. As you may recall, at the end of the day yesterday, the prosecution was still direct examining Dr. Reed. It's my understanding that the prosecution is ready to proceed with the direct examination of Dr. Reed. So Dr. Reed, I'll ask you to take the witness stand again, please, and I will remind you that you're still under oath. And I will remind the jury that the court has admitted the testimony of Dr. Reed only for a limited purpose. You may consider this testimony only as to the issues raised by the defendant's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. You shall not consider this evidence for any other purpose. With that, Mr. Brockler, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I just want to say, we're missing one lavalier. I think we're using one to try to make the sound more appreciable, but I thought there might be one more. Sorry to interrupt with that. Doctor, I want to approach with the court's permission to show you two DVDs. One is marked People's Exhibit 1011. The other one's marked the same, but it has that same seal on it that we talked about. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Doctor, do you recognize what those are?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. The DVD with the office seal on it, is that the DVD that you reviewed in detail from start to stop?
Yes.
The other DVD that also bears your signature but not the office seal on it, does that DVD, within the context of the court's orders with the enhanced sound presumably, also accurately reflect the recording that you watched in detail on People's Exhibit 1011?
Yes, it does.
Is this the very last video that we have?
It's the last video of my examinations, yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move for the admission and publication of the enhanced version of People's Exhibit 1011 and ask that the court mark the one with the seal on it as a court exhibit.
Any objection, Mr. King?
No, not any additional objection, Judge, no.
All right. Without any additional objection and based on my previous rulings, People's Exhibit P-TR-1011, was it? 1011 is admitted and may be published. And Doctor, you may step down again if you wish. Members of the jury, I remind you that the defendant's statements and this video recording have been admitted only for a limited purpose. You may consider the defendant's statements on this video recording only as to the issues raised by his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. And I mentioned to you the other day that when I refer to the issues raised by the defendant's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, I mean issues related to two questions. Number one, whether the defendant was so diseased or defective in mind at the time of the commission of the act as to be incapable of distinguishing right from wrong with respect to that act. And the word wrong refers to moral wrong as measured by societal standards of morality. Number two, whether the defendant suffered from a condition of mind caused by a mental disease or defect that prevented him from forming a culpable mental state that is an element of a crime charged. And as you know, there are two culpable mental states that are elements of the crime charged, the crimes charged in this case, after deliberation and with intent and knowingly. And I've given you the definitions of those culpable mental states before, and I'll be giving them to you again later. You shall not consider the defendant's statements on this video recording for any other purpose. Dr. Reed's statements on this video recording may only be considered for the limited purpose of allowing you to evaluate the reliability of his examination and to provide context to the statements made in the video recording by the defendant. You shall not consider any statements made by Dr. Reed on this video recording for the truth of their content or for any other purpose. With that, you may proceed with the publication of People's Exhibit P-TR-1011.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I'm going to do that.
Okay, I think we're running. You remember everything that
there's a video camera there, we're being taped, I work for the judge.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't work for either side, but the two sides may see the video, the report, things like that, right?
Okay.
Okay. How was it last night? Did you sleep okay?
Yeah.
Reasonable dinner?
Tacos.
Taco?
Yeah.
Is there a regular menu rotation so you can kind of...
No, they don't give us a menu, and it's usually different.
So it's not like Friday is pork chop day or something
Right.
like that?
They don't have like, Italian night or whatever.
Okay. Any thoughts about the things we talked about yesterday?
Nope.
Things that I may have missed or misunderstood or that you wanted to add about yesterday?
No.
Okay. Today, I suspect that we will work long enough so that we don't take a lunch break.
Okay.
It's not going to go 6 or 7 hours the way Dr. Gerd did, but I suspect we'll go for 3 hours or so. We'll take a break to change the media in the camera, and then maybe go another hour or so, and that'll probably be it.
All right.
Looks like you had a shower this morning.
Yep. Got in the shower.
I'd like to go over some things that I've kind of marked in the notes of our previous talk up at Simhip, and a couple of other things that kind of jump around a little bit. Let's see what I have here. You said you may not have said it directly to him, but Dr. Metzner has noted some things about what you described as trying to physically and mentally differentiate yourself from your normal self. Does that ring a bell at all?
I think when he asked about the photos, I said I was trying to differentiate myself from my normal.
Okay, the dye there, that makes sense
Yeah.
based on what I have here. You apparently used the phrase that you were making sure that you were distinct, quote, from my crazy self. Can you tell me what the context of that is in terms of the photos and the dyed hair?
Find the way it was.
I'm not sure the context.
Okay. You were talking about protecting your normal self because, quote, the other me did everything. You said this protection worked because I can blame it on the possessed James.
Alright, so the contact lenses I had were called possession lenses.
That was their brand name or their model name, wasn't it?
Just their characterization.
A characterization of it. Was that like in the way you would order them, they are possession lenses?
Yeah, they
or
call
is that
them-
a phrase that you would give to them?
No, they call them possession lenses.
Gotcha. How about the phrase, I can blame it? And I think we're referring to the killings. I can blame it on the possessed James.
Right, so I can kind of transfer the blame to this kind of crazy self with me.
Okay. And I think you're referring to the way that you were thinking before the event, around the time you were creating the notebook and things like that. Is that your understanding too?
Yeah, it's the setting.
Okay. You haven't used the word very much with me, but you did with Dr. Messner, I think. No, you did with Garthy. in some texts, the word evil. Where does
Right,
it,
I said I wasn't inherently evil.
where does your concept of evil fit in all this?
Well, killing people is considered evil.
Considered evil by
Everyone.
everyone, to include you, or not?
I'm not sure.
Think about it a little for me. You said everyone considers killing to be evil.
Right, sometimes it's a necessity, like in war.
Right. But I think we're referring to killings such as you were thinking about with Gargi, or such as you did. Are you part of the everyone that considers him evil?
No, I don't think so.
If everyone considers them evil, is there a reason that they shouldn't consider your act evil, even though you say that you don't consider it evil? That's not a very clear question. How much weight should we give to your simply saying, I don't think it was evil?
That's up to the person to decide.
I'm sorry?
That's up to the person to decide.
Up to the person who's saying it?
Who's saying that?
Okay. Meaning it's up to you to decide whether it's evil or not.
No, it's up to whoever's trying to figure it out.
Okay. One of the things that you said to Gargi in the interaction, I think it was back in March, late March of 2012, was that what you feel like doing is evil. That is the acts. What I feel like doing is evil, so can't do that. And you were referring to, in your words, kill people, of course. At that time, at least what you said to Gargi was what you were contemplating doing was evil.
It's considered evil by society.
Well, you said to her that it's not just considered evil, you said it is evil. And I'm wondering, there are a lot of reasons that you might have said that to her. Is that the way you felt about it when you said it, as far as you can remember?
I guess so.
And it was a long time ago, and it was in a particular context, I understand that. Yeah. You've referred several times to life in one way or another being meaningless, or not having meaning, saying that in one way or another in your writings and things like that. Is that fair to say?
Right, I couldn't find a meaning to life.
Okay. Do you still feel that way, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
When you were texting to Gargi, you said, if there's a meaning to life, and you take that away from other people, you have prevented their purpose. So you're making it conditional, if there's a meaning to life. But it sounds like, at least in that interchange, you're considering that there might be a meaning, and taking it away from other people prevents their purpose. Does that make sense, or
Yeah.
am I misunderstanding?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. You say a little further down that if you take away their purpose, quote, it still makes my life more meaningful.
Right, it's kind of back to that value system.
Okay. And, okay, that helps. Because haven't really clarified what the meaning might be, but one of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, is the value system, the human capital value.
Right.
You're talking,
Yeah.
and you're kind of looking at me like a deer in headlights, and I don't know whether you're following or whether I'm being clear or not. Can you help me out with that?
Well, if they have a purpose, you kind of absorb that purpose when you kill them.
And do you think, sitting here today, do you think they have a purpose?
I don't know what the purpose is.
Do you think they have a purpose?
I'd say no.
As you were thinking about it 2 or 3 years ago, so far as you recall, at that time, did you think they had a purpose? Even if you didn't know what it was?
Could be. I don't remember though.
Fair enough. By the way, may I take your pulse once more?
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep kicking, you know, that's the second time I've done that. Coming back to the word evil, you referred at least once with Dr. Metzner that you thought killing people at the time was evil because it was against the law. Do you remember that, or is that?
Yeah.
Is there any other context in which killing people might be evil except it's just against the law?
The other person doesn't want to die.
And what would that have to do with it being evil?
Because you're going against somebody's wishes.
I can think of situations where one might go against somebody else's wishes and it wouldn't be evil.
Right. It's on a case by
I don't
case.
want to work, but my boss forces me to go to work. And go ahead.
It's on a case by case basis.
Talk to me about morally evil. Killing people in the context that we're talking about today. Talk to me about morally evil.
What's there to talk about?
What comes to mind?
Something that's against the law. And if you do it, then it's morally evil.
I'm sorry?
And if you do it, it's morally evil.
That's kind of circular, though. Oh, what? You talked yesterday about your view of morals in one way, moral relativism.
Right.
That is, what's moral is what you think is moral, and what's immoral is what you think is immoral. Am I paraphrasing that reasoning?
Pretty much so.
Okay. I guess I'm going back to killing people in the way you did. Can you talk to me about it in a context of evil, or does that simply not apply?
No, because it wasn't malicious.
If it's not malicious, then besides malicious?
I don't know.
I think you used the word necessary at some point.
Yeah, to complete the mission, yeah.
It wasn't malicious, was it benign?
No, it was still harmful.
Harmful? Okay. Would you say it was indifferent to the morality of it, or?
I didn't really consider the morality.
Irrelevant to the morality of it, or? Okay. I don't want to interrupt you, but you did answer. You said you didn't consider the morality of it.
Right.
And do you have a feel for a reason that you didn't consider the morality of it?
It just wouldn't, it didn't matter morally.
Didn't matter morally. Okay. You spent lots of time preparing, lots of time thinking about it.
Right.
In one way or another. Does it make sense that other people might think about it in terms of morals? Or evil,
Yeah.
or mattering or something? Okay. Would they be accurate in thinking about it in terms of morals or evil or in mattering? The lives mattering?
It's all subjective on their opinion.
But from your viewpoint, it was simply not something that came to mind.
Right, yeah.
Okay. You did think about whether or not children would be killed, though. Did you think about that beforehand or just afterward?
Well, beforehand, because I chose a time, and I guess it was PG-13, so.
So that was some level of consideration of what was right to do and what wasn't right to do in your mind, it sounds like.
I think it's wrong to kill children.
So you were considering at least one thing having to do with right or wrong, and that had to do with children, and you wanted to leave them out of the equation.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I may have asked you this some time ago. If you kill children, do you still get a point for that death?
Yeah, because their lives are valuable too.
Do you get any more for killing a child because of perhaps the increased potential or something like that?
Not by the system I made.
Okay. But you get the credit, if you will, for killing them. But they're the only group of people that you've mentioned so far anyway, for which, in the balance of whether I get the point and whether they matter enough for you not to want to kill them. Is that fair to say?
Right, yeah.
Is there any other group of folks that, in some way or other, matters, maybe with regard to right and wrong or your moral thought, matters enough that you would not or do not want to kill them to get their point?
No, not really.
Any particular cutoff for when the child becomes grown up enough to kill?
I'd say 12.
12, okay. Were you thinking like that, do you think, 2.5 years ago, or is that something that you're kind of or thinking about right now? It
It was kind of after the fact.
mentioned to Hillary at some point that you were bad news bears. She should stay away from it.
Yeah, I wanted to protect her.
I know it's sort of an off-the-cuff phrase, but what does it mean that you thought of yourself as bad news bears, or were you just kind of saying that as a matter of conversation?
It doesn't really mean anything. I think it was a movie or something once.
Sure. I guess what I'm getting at is, did you think of yourself as bad?
I thought other people would view me as bad.
Did you think of yourself as bad?
No.
As I say, it sounds kind of like an off-the-cuff remark and not a deep philosophical thought.
Right.
Okay. Here's something I asked about a little earlier, actually. The pictures that the people sent you, almost all women, sent you, some of which you put up on your cell in the square.
Right.
I think you mentioned to me that they sent those pictures because they were supportive of you.
Yeah.
Any other reason that they sent you those pictures that you can think of, or that you thought of a couple of years ago?
Well, if they like me or not.
How did they know about you?
Through media coverage, I think.
Through media coverage. Do you think any of them were responding to your internet dating, adult friend finder?
Yeah, I think so. That was also one of the reasons.
Tell me how many, all of them, or a few of them, or maybe one or two, knew about you from there.
At least a couple, because some said they were on Match, and that they had like a match with me or whatever.
So some specifically mentioned that.
Yeah.
Do you know how long, and you may not know this, how long your profile stayed up on those sites, or on Adult Friend Finder?
I know they took them down. I don't know when. Maybe it was up a week. A week since the shoot. It was up for a while beforehand too.
The one that was up beforehand, it would have been an email sent to your mailbox at the service, rather than something posted to the jail. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't remember getting any email.
Okay. How many of those services did you try, or did you join?
Match.com and Adult Friend Finder.
There was an indication that you canceled your subscription, but it may not have been to Adult Friend Finder. You canceled at least one of your internet subscriptions that had to do with women. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it was XXXmatch.com.
Okay. So that was another kind of match deal that was a little more...
Another dating site, yeah.
Was it a little more sexually oriented, the XXX in it, or...?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you get any responses from that? XXXmatch.com?
Yeah, but I think they were fake from the employers to try and get you to buy more services.
How did they do that?
Well, they just post a fake profile and then contact you saying, hey, let's hang out or whatever.
Did the stuff that they would send get pretty explicit, or would it be, hey, let's go have coffee?
No, it wasn't too raunchy.
I'm sorry?
It wasn't too raunchy.
Okay. You said to Dr. Messner at some point that one of the things you couldn't talk to Dr. Fenton about was that you were buying weapons and that you thought you were crazy because killing people is crazy. Do you remember that general?
Yeah.
And that I wanted to be locked up.
Right. Part of me didn't want to do the whole mission.
I think we talked about that a fair amount, about what part of you wanted to be stopped or controlled or locked up, and what part of you didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I asked yesterday a little bit, and I'll just kind of recap it. We generally describe those as two parts of the same person, kind of wrestling inside, and not as two separate people.
Right. It was still one me.
And you were aware of both those parts of you,
Yeah.
or not?
I think so.
Okay. Excuse me. We've talked a fair amount about your thoughts that one of the reasons that you had to carry out the mission was so that you wouldn't commit suicide. To save your life, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Or at least to help with the depression.
Right.
But suicide figured in there, the potential for suicide and preventing you from being that depressed. Am I right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about the concept of trading other people's lives for yours.
I'm not sure what you mean.
In order for you, or according to what you said, in order for you to have a likelihood of not committing suicide,
Right.
then you were willing to kill multiple other people to get that chance. That's what I mean by trading other people's lives for yours.
Yeah, it's part of what I did.
I'm sorry?
It's part of what I did.
Okay. Tell me about the rightness or wrongness or morality or logic of that. I guess I'm thinking about moral logic, whatever that means to you.
Just that it was necessary to do what was in my best interest.
If it's in my best interest to kill people in order to have a chance at feeling better, not a guarantee, but a chance, does that seem okay or not? Or where does that fit in the moral scheme of things?
Well, it's against the law.
Okay, we talked about being against the law. You're pretty aware of that. But I'm really talking a little deeper than that.
I guess it would be selfish if you did that.
Selfish is one word. Anything. Actually, it seems real selfish to me.
Yeah, real selfish.
It almost sounds, and I'm not saying that it's the same, but like I want a thrill and killing you will give me a thrill, so it's okay to kill you in my mind. I know you didn't kill for the thrill of it.
Yeah,
At least I don't think you killed for the thrill of it.
No.
But it sounds like there's something I want, and it's okay for me to kill you because I want it.
I'd say it's something I need
Okay.
as opposed to want.
Prior to the killings, You've not given me any indication that prior to the killings, you ever considered killing other people just because you needed something they had, except for this, the planning for this event. You've not struck me as that selfish, except in this instance.
Okay.
Does that make sense, or it's kind of a vague statement, I guess?
No, it seems to make sense.
At another point, I mean, one of the notes I have in the margin of that is question mark, trade other people's lives for his. At the time, did that sound like a reasonable trade?
Yes.
Does it still sound like a reasonable trade?
Yeah.
And take that a step further, if I may. You've indicated to various folks that you thought there was a maybe 50-50 chance that killing the other people, would make you feel better, would alleviate your depression. Maybe a 50-50 chance. Did you feel like it was, or is it okay to kill other people for a 50-50 chance at feeling good?
If there's no other options,
What other options might there have been?
if therapy worked,
Sorry?
if therapy worked,
Okay. Was the therapy working?
no.
You said several times that you did feel less anxious.
It wasn't working in regards to the depression.
How many times had you gone to the psychiatrist about?
Oh, 5 to 10 times, I think.
Okay. Think you gave it a fair chance?
There was kind of a misunderstanding that they didn't know I was depressed, but I thought they knew I was depressed.
Did you tell them that you were depressed?
No, what happened was I got the sertraline and I looked it up online and saw that it was for depression. So I thought they were treating me for depression.
To be fair, you weren't telling them everything.
Yeah, I held back
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff.
You hoped that the treatment with Finn would give you an alternative. Is that fair to say? I think that's kind of what you just said.
Yeah.
Why would it have been helpful to have an alternative? Here's what I'm thinking as I ask that. If there's not much that's morally wrong with killing other people for this purpose, to make yourself feel better, or to bring yourself more value, why would you bother to hope that Finn might be able to change that?
Because if she could cure me, then I wouldn't need to be isolated in jail or prison.
You jumped from the need or wish to kill people to isolation in jail. That's taking my thoughts to isolation in jail, or wish to be isolated in jail, being a reason for killing.
Yeah, to be isolated.
I'm sorry?
To be isolated, not necessarily in jail.
But as we've said, I think many times, the very predictable end result, consequence of this train of plans
Is
of
being
the mission
incarcerated.
is being incarcerated, either being dead or being incarcerated.
Right.
And as you said, the chances of simply escaping were pretty very minuscule.
Right.
Okay. Let me shift gears again. I want to talk with you about the phrase dysphoric mania again. Dysphoric mania. I don't think you ever brought that up with Dr. Fenn. I don't see it in the notes. I don't recall seeing it in the notes. But you described that as one of the things that you're pretty sure was present
Right.
during that period for a long time. Tell me again what dysphoric mania was to you, what it felt like.
Well, that goes back to the feelings of hyperspeed and invincibility. It was like the manic symptoms, but all the while I was still depressed, so it was dysphoric instead of euphoric.
About how long was it that you had those periods of what you're referring to as the dysphoric mania? I understand they came and went. Sometimes, I think you said 2, 3, 4 times a week. Do I remember that right?
It sounds right.
Over what period of time did you have those episodes?
I think until I started the antidepressants or anxiolytic, and then it was only depression and not mania anymore.
Let me see if I understand you right. It started with the prescribing of the antidepressants and the anxiolytic?
No, it ended.
Ended with it. Okay, so that's about where it ended.
Right.
And roughly when did it start?
No, actually, it started at the advent of the anxiolytic. I think the medication caused me to go manic sometimes.
You think the medication caused you to go manic? Or in a dysphoric way? So.
Yeah.
Okay. And I recall you're saying that it stayed roughly the same for a period. When did it end, if it did?
Well, I don't think I'm manic anymore, but I'm not sure what time it is.
Okay. Did it continue until the shootings, at least?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Any questions about the stuff we just talked about, or any expansion of those?
No.
I'm reminded that pretty much everything you talked about with Dr. Fenton, that you recall talking about the mission, has to do with helping you to not be depressed or suicidal, and bringing the value in other people to you, which also would help you to feel better.
Right.
There's little or no mention of the hatred of mankind business that we've talked about a bit, unless I ask for it, unless I specifically ask about it. everything in the record for several months up to the shooting refers to a benefit to you in terms of not being depressed anymore, not being suicidal anymore, and or having the value of the people that you killed.
Right, I think I was manic when I wrote the hatred part.
And you have talked to several people about the hatred part at other times in your life. Is what you're talking about when you wrote the hatred part in your notebook.
No, I didn't generally share it. I think I said it to Ben once.
Oh, okay. And I think you're right. I'd like to go now through some questions I had about the time we spent together at Simca. And again, it'll skip around quite a lot. We've talked a lot about your relationship with your family, about your family supporting you while you're here. At one point, you said that one reason that you'd like to stay alive is because it would hurt your family if you were dead.
Yeah.
Are there times when you get kind of emotional thinking about your family? Mother, dad, sister?
No, not really.
Not even when you're by yourself? In the cellar at night?
No.
I think you mentioned that occasionally you get a tear in your eye. I've not seen you come close to tears. Always unusual, but we've talked about some very emotional subjects sometimes.
I think closer to the incident, I was more emotional.
About the incident or about other things?
No, not about the incident. Just closer to the incident, I was more emotional towards my family, that they cared about me and stuff.
When you say close to the incident, do you mean close after the incident?
Yes, after.
Okay. What do you make of it not being, the closeness not being so emotional now?
Well, it's kind of accepted the way things are.
I think I asked you yesterday how much you looked forward to hearing from your folks, your mom and your dad. Let me ask you again if I may. How much do you look forward to it, think about it, versus, oh, a letter appeared and my lawyers gave it to me?
No, I'm happy when they send me letters.
Do you think about their sending you letters before you get the letter? That is, look forward to it.
Yeah.
If they miss a week, or if the letter's a bit late, does that trouble you?
No, it's kind of an erratic schedule because they don't, my lawyers don't bring them every week. They might bring 2 or 3 on a certain day.
We know that Chris doesn't write to you. Would you like for her to write to you? Would you prefer it or not?
Well, my mom usually writes what my sister's up to anyway.
Would you like for Chris to write to you? Would you prefer it or not?
It doesn't matter if she writes or not.
That sort of sounds like she doesn't matter. How she thinks about me doesn't matter. Whether I'm in her mind doesn't matter. Whether I'm in her thoughts doesn't matter. Is that close or not close?
Not close.
Can you talk to me about how that's not close? Because you use the phrase, it doesn't matter whether she writes or not.
Right, because I know she loves me anyway.
Okay. And you've said that before. You've told me that before. Okay. If I know someone loves me, whether they write to me or not, I still might like to hear from them, prefer to hear from them versus not hear from them.
Right, if I had a choice, I would want to hear from her.
Okay. With the choice you want. Okay. Did your family take many pictures or videos when you guys went places like the trip to Lake Tahoe, things like that?
I'm not sure. I wasn't the one taking the pictures.
Well, that raises an interesting thing because I hadn't asked you folks for photos like that. That's what I was referring to, but you raised another point. Did you ever take pictures of stuff on your phone? I know you took some because we've seen the contents of your phone. How much did you want to remember events with friends or family?
I didn't take that many. Maybe 10.
Do you think about those events now? Do you enjoy remembering them, or is it not particularly important to you?
I don't know.
Think about it a minute. Do you think about those times? Are they important to you or not important to you at this point?
We're talking about family vacations.
Good times with family, good times with friends.
Yeah. The pictures aren't important. It's what they represent was important.
Do you think about what they represent very much? The good times with family, good times with friends?
It's a fond memory.
How much do those memories come up in your mind?
Maybe once a day.
And when they come up, how do they feel? How do you feel?
Reminiscent.
Can you expand on that a little? What do you mean? How do you feel when those fond memories come up?
That those were happy times in my life.
How else does it make you feel that those were happy times?
It also makes me remorseful that I won't have new fond memories either.
So you anticipate not having, I think you said, any new fond memories?
Oh, yes.
Sounds a little sad. Sounds very sad, actually.
Yeah.
Might you tear up a little when you're by yourself? Think about that, those fond memories?
I used to, but not anymore.
You mentioned the medication that you were prescribed, the anxiety medication. I saw a note, or actually, my assistant typed that you had taken Xanax, and I don't recall you mentioning Xanax.
I don't recall it either.
Okay, I think it was a typo on her part, or mishearing something.
I took Zantac
Zantac, that's where she made this. Zantac.
for indigestion.
Gotcha. That explains it. Thank you. We talked a little bit at one point about the reason or reasons that you stopped shooting and left the theater. Can you reiterate for me a bit, why did you stop?
I felt I'd shot enough people. And the other was the weapon jamming.
Those are the two things that I recall as well. The weapon jamming, and you couldn't unjam it easily.
Right.
And you felt that you'd shot enough people. Although you still had a handgun and many rounds
Right.
with you. Did you feel that you were in danger?
No.
Okay. So that wasn't part of the reason that you left at that point?
No.
Do you remember how you left, the process that you went through when you said, in one way or another, I'm going to leave now? What happened?
I just walked out the emergency exit door.
You walked.
Yeah.
At some point, you were up the aisle toward the entrance
Right.
under one of the lights.
That's where I walked from.
Okay, so it's a fairly long walk
Not really.
down to the half of the auditorium, give or take, or not.
It didn't seem very long.
Okay. You walked toward the exit. Walked fast, walked slowly. Give me some adjectives or adverbs about how you walked.
Just a normal walking pace.
As you walked, do you remember looking around?
Yeah, I looked back at the theater seats, and no one was sitting in them. They were all crouched down behind the seats.
As you walked out and looked around, did you think that someone might be dangerous to you, rushing you, or shooting at you, or anything like that? Or were you just
No.
moseying out of the theater?
I was just walking out of the theater.
I remember you mentioned looking back, and there was a guy in the front row smiling.
Right, yeah.
Any other thoughts about his smiling?
I don't know why he was smiling.
Do you think he might have been grimacing rather than smiling?
No, I'm pretty positive it was a smile.
So you don't think he was grimacing because he was hurt?
No, he wasn't like holding his leg or arm or anything that would suggest that.
Was he sitting in the seat or crouching or hunkering down behind it?
He was sitting in front of his seat
So he was quite exposed.
because he was in the front row too. Yeah.
Do you recall whether he was sitting on his seat or
He
sitting?
wasn't on the seat. No, nobody was on their seats at the end there.
Do you understand that he was on the floor in front of his seat?
Right.
Can you describe how he was sitting?
Just with his legs to the side, kind of leaning against the seat.
What makes you think that he wasn't wounded?
He wasn't, it didn't look like he was in pain at all.
But he was pretty exposed.
Right, yeah.
Did you think about shooting him?
No.
What do you make of that?
That it probably would have been really personal to shoot a person who's smiling at you.
So from the time you started walking, did you fire at all on your way out?
No.
Did you have your handgun out, or?
I had the assault rifle and I was trying to put a magazine in it.
Was the handgun in your hand as you walked, or do you remember?
No, it was in my belt.
In your belt. As you walked out, thinking down the aisle, there's kind of a curtain that creates the exit aisle, am I right?
I'm not sure what you mean.
As you go behind the screen,
I never went behind the screen. There's a space behind the screen.
right?
And they thought somebody might be hiding there, so they cut it down.
Okay. But the door, the exit door, is in the same plane as the screen or behind the plane of the screen?
Behind a bit.
Okay. And that's kind of what I meant. Was there some sort of...
There wasn't like an obstacle in the way.
Okay. Did you see anybody in front of you as you walked out?
No.
But I think you said you observed some people going out that way
Yeah, like
earlier.
4 people carrying one guy.
Any idea what happened to that guy or to those 4 people?
No, there were so many.
I'm sorry?
There were so many injured. I don't know by name.
Did you notice the blood outside the door as you left?
Yeah, there were blood smears.
Did you think anything about that blood and what it might have been due to?
Well, the guy they carried out got shot.
Does that raise any thoughts about what happened to him? What was going to happen?
I thought he would be taken for medical assistance.
Then when you got outside, as I understand it, at some point fairly soon you saw 2 officers facing away from. They looked at you and then they walked away from you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And why do you think they walked away from you?
Because I think they thought I was SWAT or a policeman.
Okay, that's my understanding too. And they're walking away. You have the handgun.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you thought about shooting them but did not shoot them. Or is that not quite right?
No, that's pretty accurate.
Tell me about the reasoning at that point in which you didn't shoot it.
Well, I considered the mission over, so by that point.
Did you consider that it might be dangerous to shoot at them?
Yeah, I also didn't want to get shot back.
So, but one of the factors was you considered the mission over.
Right.
How did it feel to consider the mission over? You remember the feeling, the visceral feeling, anything like that?
Relief.
Tell me more about that.
When I was finally done doing the shooting.
You used a phrase in another context that you had accomplished your mission. Was that a feeling at that time, or did that come later?
I'm not sure.
At what point did you take the handgun out and put it on top of the car?
Once I saw the backs of the two police officers.
Okay. Just to clarify my own thoughts and not overthink something. You took the handgun out, put it on top of the car. Was there a point at which you thought about shooting them and decided not to? Or did you never, as far as you recall, think about shooting them?
Well, I figured if they shot at me, then I would have easy access to the handgun to shoot them back. But otherwise, I didn't think about shooting them.
Okay. You talked about having some trouble studying, trouble focusing on your studies in January, February of 2012. And when we talked, you attributed that to being depressed. Do you recall that conversation or that thought?
No, not really.
What I was asking myself was, might your difficulty focusing on the studies in January, February have had to do with your mononucleosis?
It could have. I was pretty sick.
How long were you pretty sick with it?
2-3 months.
2 or 3 months. And over that 2 or 3 months, that would be January, February, March, or
December, January.
December, January, February. When you say pretty sick, can you describe again for me how you were sick?
Fatigued, coughing, and having a sore throat.
Were there very many days when you couldn't go or didn't go to class or lab?
No, I still went to every class and every lab.
Every class and every lab.
Well, maybe this is a good time to take our break. Members of the jury, I'm going to turn the lights back on. All right, it's 10 o'clock, folks, and the record should reflect that for some reason the videotape stopped playing. But it's about the time that we were going to take our morning break anyway. So let's go ahead and do that. Please remember that all the advisements I've been giving you throughout the trial in terms of your conduct when you're not in the courtroom apply during the break. Enjoy the break, and I'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom at this time. Let me just address one last time the conversation that we had before the jury came in. I've been on this case for over 2 years now. I want you to try your case. I have given both sides a chance to make their arguments, make objections, make their record whenever they want, and I will always do that. I will not interfere with your ability to do that. Yesterday, Ms. Nelson spoke for over 5 minutes. I interjected at one point and asked questions, and we had a dialogue. After that, she said, Judge, I need to supplement my record. And she said it very respectfully. And I said, I think you've made your record. Is there anything else that you need to add? And then she said yes, and I allowed her an opportunity to supplement the record, and she finished making her record. At that point, I turned it to the prosecution and said, do you have a response? The prosecution responded. After the prosecution's response, I ruled. I ruled on the objections and the arguments that Ms. Nelson had raised. Once the court rules, we move on. It's improper for an attorney to then say, Judge, can I clarify what the court just said? I'm the only one who can clarify what I said. I'm the one who said it. An attorney cannot clarify for me what I meant or what I said. Now, if that means, can I correct what the court said? That's improper. That's an argument for appeal. That's an argument for later. I heard the argument. I ruled. An attorney doesn't get to say to the court, can I correct the court? Or can I clarify what the court meant? To the extent that that was a request to clarify what the court said, it's improper. To the extent that it was a request to correct the court, that's improper. To the extent, finally, that it was an opportunity or a request to disagree with the court, that too is improper. We have to move on. If I allow attorneys after my rulings to say, Judge, can I clarify what you just said, or can I correct what you just said, or can I disagree with what you just said, this would be never ending. It would be never ending. I mean, imagine all the objections and arguments that have been made in this case over 2 years. This would take decades, even longer, because after every ruling, an attorney would want to disagree or correct me or clarify what I meant. And after each attorney does that, I would have to address that argument. And then after I address that argument, the attorney could say, Judge, can I clarify that now, or can I correct that? And it would be never ending. So the way it works is attorneys have an opportunity to make arguments, make records, and once they've done that, I rule. And once I rule, we move on. It's that simple. And attorneys have to respect and accept my rulings. That's the way it works. All right, the court will be in recess. Thank you.